So I'm Paula Mendoza and Violeta Osegueda and then Jackie Mutoka. Part of the UCI Child and Adolescent Interest Group that we just started. And we've had this diversity series talk now for a couple months. And you're our second to last speaker. And I'm just so excited to have you. I'm really grateful that you made some time. Um, so I remember I actually met you at the NHMA conference like 2 years ago in DC. And I think you were a child and adolescent fellow. And that was the first time that I found out about child and adolescent psychiatry. So that was really cool. And like now kind of like a little bit full circle to like have you here. And so this is for everybody else who's here. This is Doctora Evita Limon-Rocha. She's a Latina psychiatrist speaking, dually board certified in child and adolescent psychiatry and adult psychiatry. She received her bachelor's degree from UCR, her master's degree in public health from UCLA, and her medical degree from the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA as well. She's a board member of a nonprofit Reach Out and is a board member of the Chicano Latino Alumni Association at UC Riverside, along with other roles in the national organization such as NHMA. Dr. Evita Limon-Rocha has found great meaning working with nonprofits, including working towards strengthening and creating pipeline programs to decrease diversity within higher education, the sciences, medicine, and ultimately psychiatry. She hopes to continue to serve as a mentor to students of all levels, and she remains committed to work to assuring families, and especially monolingual Spanish families, will not experience the substandard medical care she has so many times witnessed. This work fuels her spirit. This work gives her meaning. Her ultimate goal is to decrease the stigma around utilization of mental health services and mental health diagnosis, specifically within underserved communities and the Latino community. So everybody give a virtual round of applause and great welcome to Evita Limon-Rocha. Thank you again.
So buenas tardes, good afternoon, everybody. And again, thank you for joining me, and hopefully we'll have a little fun on this Zoom meeting in the evening. So I feel honored for everybody who joined in, because I know it's late and it's at the end of the day. Hopefully I'll make you laugh. Maybe we'll dance a little bit and keep you entertained. And so the goal of today's talk is to talk about kind of post-training life. And I decided to start with these set of pictures. So one of them is my youngest son. He got the chapstick and he was putting it on his face. And so life can be a little messy. And so I was like, what better picture than this, with him like putting the chapstick all over his face. And he's like super excited. Look, mommy, look how well I put chapstick on my face. And then the COVID pandemic has been tough. We haven't interacted with other individuals as we normally have. But this year was my dad's 70th birthday, and the one thing that he wanted was banda. And so for his 70th birthday, we celebrated with a banda. Mind you, it was like a really tiny audience because my dad's 70 and diabetic, but still he had his banda and he was super, super happy. So that's a picture recently from having a banda play for my dad's birthday. So it was a combination celebration, my mom and my dad's birthday. And then this picture right here with me driving and my kids in the back. I'm not driving. We were stopped actually, so don't worry. I'm not taking pictures as I'm driving. Was daylight savings time. So we were driving really early in the morning to take my kids to soccer. And so we were en route, kind of all cansados, all tired, but we were on our way to go watch them play soccer. So part of that is just life continues. And so those are kind of different pictures. And my husband, who's been an amazing, amazing kind of advocate and supporter, cheerleader. And so he is right there in that picture. So before we get too far, I always, in these presentations, I always like to reflect. I've always been a really reflective person. And I like to think back kind of and remember kind of how I felt as a student. And so I invite you guys to take a moment to reflect and just take kind of a mental photograph of where you are in this moment. Where are you sitting? And when we say where you are, kind of where you are in life. So it can be kind of location or kind of, I know we were talking about earlier about we're eagerly awaiting to figure out where we're going to be training or kind of in terms of next steps. So again, I invite you just to kind of take a moment and just reflect on kind of where we are in life and kind of just also in terms of position and kind of room and location. But in that, I invite you to reflect on how far you've come and all the things that you have overcome and everything that has brought you to this moment in time. And also all the challenges, kind of a reflection of everything that you've been through in just a short amount of time. Time with COVID, it's been tough. It's been a kind of a completely kind of transformative in terms of how we do medicine, how we interact with each other, and it's had a huge impact. And so again, I ask you to reflect in terms of that. But with that, I always like to do things. I'm an optimist by nature. And so I always look at the glass and it's half full in my eyes. So I want you to pair that with a gratitude exercise. In this moment, what are you grateful for? And so for me, I just feel incredibly honored that you guys took your evening to spend some time with me. And I love working with students. So I'm incredibly grateful for this time with you tonight. And so again, I ask you to kind of pair and overall, what I would invite you to do over time is to incorporate those reflective moments, taking a moment in time, just kind of putting like freeze, but also taking a moment in time and saying, freeze, what's good, what's going well right now, and just pick one thing. And then the second purpose of this exercise, it can help frame your vision of where do you want to go, thinking about how far I've come, all the things that you've overcome to get to this point, and also in terms of that mission statement. So part of what was read today, right before I started talking, is my mission statement. And I go back to that mission statement frequently, sometimes almost every day, in terms of where is my mission? Where am I going? Where do I want to go? In a little bit, I'm going to invite you guys to really start thinking about that mission statement, that if you haven't put it together, really start thinking about what is it, my mission? What is that I want to accomplish? And again, you can also turn it into an elevator speech. So, hey, you're meeting me in the elevator and you're like, hey, I'm Paula. This is what I'm excited about. I'm a student here and I'm doing that. And so it can be your elevator speech too when you're talking to different individuals to introduce yourself, but also to kind of ground you of where am I going? ¿Dónde quiero ir? Where do I want to go? So you'll notice throughout the talk, you see pictures of plants. And so I wanted to mention that really quickly. So those are my plants that I've created over time. And so right here, there's a picture of my kids and I, and we're creating an arrangement. And we'll talk about the significance of that in a little bit. So, but if you see the plants throughout, those are plants and arrangements that I've made. So our objectives for this evening are to have a little fun, to relate to one another, and to demonstrate the importance of caring for the spirit, which is important no matter where you are, whether you be post-training, kind of in medical school, an undergraduate student, a high school student. And so I really, really want to highlight that because that's something that I'm continuing to even kind of post-training kind of still working on every day. So again, these are different arreglos that I've done, and you'll see pictures of trees because I've been planting a lot of trees. So I've been digging a lot of holes. So those are pictures of, and I'm really proud of my arbolitos, my fruit trees. All right. So again, our objectives continued being kind of, I'll hopefully answer the question of psychiatry, child and adolescent psychiatry. What happened? Why? And we'll get to kind of what that means in a short bit. And then also I'll hopefully to get to some post-training questions. But if we don't get to everything today, my hope is that this is an invitation for future conversations and future talks. So don't worry, to be continued. So I wanted to start with a very powerful quote that always just kind of blows me away every single time I read it. So if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. But if you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Dr. Martin Luther King. So, which I feel is very fitting. We're close to February still. So definitely a beautiful quote. So I love Miss Frizzle. And so for those of you that don't know Miss Frizzle, so there was a show and it's been revised and revamped, but it's not the same as the old Magic School Bus. But I definitely invite you, if you know of little kids, I invite you to watch the show with them. It's an amazing show. And one of the things that I love, there's a character, Miss Frizzle, on that show. And that I love about her is that her love of learning, but also in that she embraces take chances, make mistakes, get messy. And I really mean that in terms of my life. That's my daughter. So I was a fourth year medical student when I had my daughter. And so there she is holding. I know that this is match week and I know we're all tense and we can't wait to see where we're going to be in training. And so on that letter says family medicine. I'm a psychiatrist. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist. So, and the reason why I put that picture on there is sometimes we make a plan for ourselves and we're saying that this is what we're going to do. And then life kind of tells us a different path. And I'm a firm believer, if you haven't read The Alchemist, and in terms of kind of listening to kind of that inner kind of conscience voice, whatever it may be, and kind of taking chances, that listening to that inner voice is really important. And so ultimately I realized that family medicine was not for me. Psychiatry was something that was near and dear to my heart. I had a family member that had a bipolar diagnosis, and I kind of interfaced the mental health system with them, and it was very traumatic. And so for me, I was like, I hate psychiatrists, never ever going to be a psychiatrist. And here I am, a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and I love child and adolescent psychiatry, love it. So definitely it's, and I mentioned that briefly here, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but just in that, take chances, make mistakes, get messy, and taking chances are definitely worth it. And so here I am with a really good friend. We used to call each other med school mommies. So my friend Amy, and there's my daughter Italia. So at graduation. And then I know that some of you guys are in Orange County. So I love my raspados. That's actually the Golden West swap meet over in Westminster. I think it's on the border of Westminster, and I want to say Huntington, but they have amazing raspados. So highly recommend it. And family is really important to me. So that's highlighting my family. And I come from a humble background. So I love having that picture of the four of us siblings right there to highlight. Again, I want to show you that, again, no tengo poderes especiales. I don't have special powers. And hopefully kind of over my talk, we can connect and say, hey, I can do that. Or I can do more, definitely, right? Because there's a lot to be done. So I really like this quote by Tupac, and I do a lot of talks for students. And so this is a kind of quote that I like to incorporate in a lot of my talks. So life is a test, mistakes are lessons. The gift of life is knowing that you have made a difference, Tupac Shakur. And the reason why I like that quote is because I feel like the concrete rose is a beautiful illustration of resilience. And I actually have come across a concrete rose, and I'm like, I should have taken a picture, and I drove by it and never did. So it can happen. And so, but again, did you hear the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving nature's law is wrong. It learned to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete when no one else cared. And I think that kind of writing is a beautiful illustration of resilience. So resilience for me is that life is messy, right? Life throws punches at you. Life knocks you down, you scrape your knees and you fall down, right? But resilience is that ability to bounce back when faced with challenges, faced with pressure, when kind of thrown kind of life's curveballs that happen, right, as part of living. And again, I think I like to talk about resilience because, again, I know that the audience is of different kind of levels of training in different places in their lives. But the reason why I like to talk about resilience is, again, that it's hard for us to dust ourselves off. It's hard for us to get up kind of after we've fallen if we're not taking care of ourselves. And that self-care, I don't care if you're post-training, I don't care if you're a medical student, I don't care if you're an undergrad, it is so important for each and every one of us. And so we really have to take care of ourselves to protect that spirit, ese espíritu tan bonito, that beautiful spirit that each and every one of us has. It is so incredibly important. And again, each of you have a beautiful mission. And again, I want you to reflect on kind of what that fire is, what that passion is, what that mission is. What are you going to change in the world? What do you want to see different? And so again, reflect on that, because that's important to hold on to. That's your why. And in terms of Viktor Frankl and his work, and along with hope and logotherapy, it's kind of it's going to get you through and help kind of frame what that direction is. So again, that hope is so important that we incorporate it in a lot of our different scales in terms of depression. And then again, I invite you, if you ever have a little bit of time, highly recommend that you guys check out Man's Search for Meaning. It's a beautiful book. I think it's about 200 pages or less, jam-packed with it's about Viktor Frankl and his experiences. He was a Jewish psychiatrist. And he went through he lost his family, went through the concentration camps, saw a lot of horrible things, but he saw that hope and holding on to that meaning got individuals through kind of incredibly difficult situations. His hope, his meaning was writing his book and talking about logotherapy. And that was his kind of what got him through. So again, that's why your mission is so important, because it's your meaning, holding on to that of where am I going? What do I want to do? And then right now, I want you to start framing what your 2 to 3 sentence mission statement is, because again, that's something that I invite you and I challenge you to revisit. And again, that's something that I revisit frequently, sometimes daily, in terms of where am I going? Where do I want to go? Okay. Because again, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Again, Dr. Martin Luther King. So, and then one of the things that Viktor Frankl spoke about was everything can be taken from a man, but the one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way, right? So that's in our power to choose the direction and how we respond. So, and so in that, what I wanted to talk about is mindfulness. So not being mindful of like a bunch of junk of I've got this tomorrow, I've got this, like I'm hungry, I'm tired, I got to work out, or like all these things I have to do tomorrow. I challenge you to be mindful, kind of that focusing on bringing that awareness to presence, accepting kind of one's feelings, thoughts, and again, just being kind of present in this moment and not being in autopilot. I think I love that analogy of autopilot, because how many times have we driven someplace and we're like, how do we get there? And you don't really think about, of course you were driving, but you don't really think about, wow, the journey that it took. You just went into autopilot in your brain and you lost time, right? You weren't like really present in terms of that moment and you lost it. So again, mindfulness is very powerful for a lot of different reasons, because then you can check, hey, how am I doing? Is my tank full? And is my tank empty? How am I doing right now? And again, that's so important kind of wherever you are, post-training, kind of in medical school, residency, again, of being present and kind of being cognizant of how you're doing and not being on autopilot. So right now, I know you guys have had a long, busy day. So let's take a break. Let's be present. And like, let's just take a body inventory of where are you feeling tension? Is there tightness in your shoulder? I know I can feel it. It's in my shoulders. And kind of just being kind of invoking kind of every kind of your senses that you can. Am I cold? Am I hot? Am I uncomfortable? And again, very, very easy to do. And again, I know we hear about mindfulness all the time. A lot of you guys may be like, hey, I'm an expert in mindfulness. But even if you're an expert in mindfulness, it is good to remember, let's be mindful. Let's be present. Okay. So again, mis plantitas, my plants. So again, all of this is important in terms of fostering kind of that care, that ability to be resilient, that ability to kind of do the missions and do the things that we want to do in terms of our world, or in terms of what we want to do. So, and that's really, really important. So tengo mis plantitas. Right here, I have my plants. And again, over time, I've learned that plants, it's one of the ways I heal my spirit. And it's important to kind of continually reflect, how do I heal? Whether it be exercise, whether it be music. I know we were listening to Celia Cruz earlier, because again, in the words of Frida Kahlo, don't build a wall around your own suffering, or it may devour you from the inside. Again, the importance of self-care, the importance of being present and mindful of how you're doing and checking in with yourself of how am I doing right now? And I feel like COVID, more than anything, highlighted the importance of that for me in terms of how am I doing? Where am I at? What's going on? So más plantitas, more plants. Again, because again, we can't be warriors. We can't kind of change the world if we're not taking care of ourselves. So again, Instagram, TikTok, whatever the latest social media is, news. I know there's a lot of stuff going on in the news. Take breaks from this, because again, it can mess with your sleep. It can give you nightmares. It can give you stomach aches. Again, even kind of post-training, I always find the videos of like parents like not sleeping, because now they're like, oh, now my kids are asleep. Now I'm going to stay awake up all night and wonder why I'm tired the next day. Again, I have to remind myself all the time, all right, Evita, you need to go to sleep. It's time to go to sleep. And so again, putting kind of disconnecting from social media, disconnecting from technology, it can wait. TikTok can wait. Learning that little dance can wait. And again, it's important. And then the basics, drinking that water, right? Eating, pairing it with mindfulness, stretching, movement. Again, today I was like, I was sitting too long in my office. I need to walk around. So I took like two little like, laps around the office. I was like, I need to get out. I need my vitamin D. And then, of course, again, unplugging, whatever that may be, whether it be kind of sitting under a tree, walking on some grass, doing kind of a mindfulness exercise paired with grass, like walking through grass, whatever it may be, kind of connecting with nature and away from technology for a little bit. Or it may, whether it be with friends, kind of spending time with the people that kind of your family or whatever it may be. So I promised myself that when I would play this, I just play an excerpt just in case no one knows this song. So I just was gonna push a little bit so that hopefully maybe it'll pique your interest and you're like, oh, that has a catchy tune. I want to check it out. And again, I really love this song because it just talks about the beauty of life and just kind of how beautiful it is. So todo aquel que piensa que la vida es desigual, to anyone who thinks that life is unequal, tiene que saber que no es así, has to know that it's not like that, que la vida es una hermosura, hay que vivirla, that life is beautiful and you have to live it. Again, I would recommend translating it into English if for the Spanish version, because the song is in Spanish, but it's just a beautiful song kind of highlighting just life is the beauty of life, and things do happen, but again, that life is just worth living. Okay. So we've talked about different things, and you're probably wondering, okay, well, when is she talking about kind of that post training life? When are we going to get to the goal of the talk? Okay. So one of the things that I started at the beginning was kind of that reflection, because I distinctly remember being a student and kind of being like, whoa, I will never be that cool. That person is amazing. And the reason that is that I always like to highlight the expert in anything was once a beginner, made lots of mistakes, went in the wrong direction 5 times, scraped and fell on their knees many, many times. And again, just to highlight again that we all make mistakes, and that's part of life. And again, that's part of the fun of it too. Más plantitas, more plants. So we did have kind of that formal introduction. I'm a physician, I'm a psychiatrist. And so I am from the Inland Empire. I am proudly practicing in the Inland Empire in Riverside. But before that, there's a couple things that I always love to highlight. One of that is that I am the granddaughter of a migrant farm worker who attended a segregated school in the Imperial Valley in Brawley, California. The other thing that I like to highlight, this is my grandmother on my dad's side. So she was a Huichol Indian, and she was a curandera. So kind of healing and is kind of, I feel like and she also loved plants. So I blame my love of plants on both my grandparents, my grandmothers, because they both love plants. And she was known for, again, her love of plants, but also she was a very respected healer. And so again, there's a tradition of healing. And I feel like that's something a tradition that I'm very proud of. And again, my grandfather's kind of story of being kind of in a segregated school, my kind of aunts and uncles getting their names changed because they were not American enough and being punished for speaking Spanish in school. And also, I'm very proud of growing up to the knowledge of my grandmother. One of her goals was to be able to write her own name. And that was really, really important to her. And she did learn to write her own name in her 60s. And that was something that she was very, very proud of. And so all of that is really important to me because there is a story of a strong kind of story of respeto and respect, humility, and definitely lots and lots of resilience, lots of challenges. I'm going to take a quick detour and invite you guys to check out the AAMC website. And the reason for that is that it's important to kind of have an understanding of self, kind of figure out kind of different specialties. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist, so there's lots of information kind of just to kind of, if you're like, what is that? And if I sparked your interest, kind of things to look at. So back to where we were. All right. So, and again, the reason for this is that, and the reason why I do talks like this is because there's such a beauty and diversity in each of your voices, in each of your dreams, and each of your missions that you want to do. And again, I like to highlight that I'm a likely impossible, and I always like the reframe of I'm possible, dream of my ancestors, right? I doubt my ancestors would have ever thought their granddaughter would be a physician. And so, and I, again, I highlight that my grandmother's goal was to write her own name. And I remember growing up as a kiddo and even college student, that was kind of what goal that my grandmother wanted to be able to write her own name. And then I also highlight that my grandfather's goal for my mom was for her to work as a secretary so that she would have air conditioning. And that was important, that she had a good working environment because he worked in the fields. And then again, across time, my hope is to highlight si se puede, si se pudo, and for each of you that it can be done, right? And again, I love Dr. Seuss. Again, I'm a child psychiatrist at heart. And again, I love the niches, and I love kind of the messages that are embedded in some of Dr. Seuss's books, again, of how important it is to kind of work collaboratively, and kind of not focus on kind of the things that make us different, but the things that make us similar, and kind of working together. I would be amiss if I didn't talk about mentorship. And so Dr. Bailey was my program director for my fellowship program in child and adolescent psychiatry. So again, I've talked about kind of there being detours, sort of, right? And so I've talked there about being detours. And again, I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for kind of amazing mentors that I've met along the way that have kind of directed me in different directions. And so have been kind of amazing mentors. So again, life is better when you're laughing. I'm a firm believer that laughter is kind of one of the best medicines that we have. So again, working with students is something that I'm that fuels my spirit. It's really important to me. So again, do the things that you love, stay inspired, foster that passion. And again, I'm going to kind of be a broken record. Reflect on that mission statement. What is your mission? And again, revisit it. So now we're going to get to what I was charged to talk about. And again, I love this macetita because I feel like it's just kind of being present and mindful. And it just kind of is a good reminder to me of that. So a lot of times I get asked, well, how did you end up in psychiatry? So I did a brief intro in terms of really hating psychiatry. My introduction was very limited, and I thought psychiatrists were mean, unfeeling people that really were terrible people, if you would have asked me that my fourth year of medical school. And then I went into medical school wanting to be a family physician. I saw individuals as kind of whole individuals. I saw them as kind of being in systems. And if you wanted to help the diabetic, you needed to change the whole family. Telling the one person you need to change and your diet I didn't feel was going to be very effective. The whole family needed to work together and change their diet together. And so that was my thought, that I was like, well, collaboratively, family medicine sounds like the place for me. Soy bilingüe, I'm bilingual, and I figured that there's definitely a huge need. And so originally I thought that was my plan. So I went all the way until my third year of medical school, and that was my plan. I was going to be a family medicine doctor. And you saw from the picture that I ended up matching in family medicine. And ultimately, backtracking just a little bit. So I was part of cohort 1 for Prime. And so I did get an opportunity to do a master's in public health. And during that master's, I kind of explored kind of the mental health system. Third year was a very confusing year for me. I discovered that psychiatrists weren't unfeeling, kind of mean, awful people. I realized that they were very it could be transformative and it could change patients' lives. And I was blown away, but I didn't know what to do with that information, given the fact that I had this whole kind of experience of just really not liking the mental health system. And so now fast forward to, I did the master's in public health. I kind of explored kind of different things and in terms of the ACA and its implications in terms of mental health, looking at kind of mental health kind of policy, and also kind of the kind of increase in morbidity and mortality with individuals with severe mental illness, and especially also looking at from a stand of looking at kind of individuals of Latino heritage and looking at how the mental health system disproportionately affected them or their experience. And so I was still very lost. And ultimately, I had gone into medical school, wanted to be a family medicine doctor. So I was like, all right, family medicine, I'm very confused, but I feel like that's the thing that I've wanted to do the most. So I'll stick with that. But then I mentioned The Alchemist, and I mentioned kind of, again, the importance of mindfulness and being kind of connected with self. And there was this nagging feeling after I had matched of, Evita, you chose wrong. Evita, this is not where you belong. And it wouldn't let me be. And it kept on talking and just kind of nagging, kind of that inner kind of feeling of like, I ended up in the wrong place. Ultimately, I decided that after an experience with kind of the mental health system and that loved one, that I was like, I need to be a psychiatrist. I need to help be kind of a force of change. And this system is ridiculous and it cannot be like this. And so I ultimately ended up changing to psychiatry. And so I took a detour and ended up at UCI and did the SOAP, and that's how I ended up at UCI. Then, if you would have asked me, and again, I love the Miss Frizzle, take chances, make mistakes, get messy, because I remember being on call in the evening and somebody asking me and saying, "Hey, Vita, I think you would be a great child and adolescent psychiatrist. What do you think about that?" And I was like, "Nope, heck no." My exact words, or close to my exact words, were, "Hell will freeze over before I choose child and adolescent psychiatry." And guess what? Here I am as a happy, very happy child and adolescent psychiatrist, thanking God frequently that, man, I'm so grateful that I listened to the wind and I ended up here. But again, kind of the reason why, but also I also always mention mentorship is important because it kind of helps kind of in terms of directing you so that you don't end up with long detours, or you end up choosing kind of the specialty that you were meant to be from the start. So that's really important. In terms of family dynamics, so, and in terms of how I ended up in Texas, so I have 3 kids. I have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old. I had my daughter as a 4th-year medical student. I had my son as a intern in family medicine, switching to be an intern in psychiatry. And so my son was born July 29th of now switching from a family medicine resident to a psychiatry resident, and also a resident who hadn't done psychiatry in several years, because the last time I did psychiatry was as a medical student. I did an MPH, and so it was a while, right? So my psychiatry skills were very set. And then in terms of my youngest son, so my youngest son was born my 3rd year of residency, psychiatry residency, as I was going. So he was born in April. And so he turned 3 months old when I started child and adolescent psychiatry fellowship in Texas. So, and again, people thought I was insane for going to Texas because I had 3 kids at that point and a newborn. But again, the program was phenomenal. I'm very, very grateful for the training that I had. I interacted with a lot of bilingual Latinx physicians. And again, my program director to this day will be a lifelong mentor. And she's an incredible, incredible individual that I just feel like transformed my way of the way I see patients, the way I interact with families. And I feel like has definitely changed kind of my trajectory in terms of how I practice medicine. So it was incredibly worth it. And on top of that, it was great to see a health service system. I'd only had exposure to Southern California, so it was great to see Texas and how it kind of how they practice medicine, and it's different in terms of I've always been interested in kind of culture and how we identify and how that culture impacts how we see the world. And how we see medicine and our interactions. And so it was really fascinating to see kind of how things are different in Texas, and kind of how kind of the greetings are different, and identification of kind of Hispanic, where here in the West Coast we use Latino, so it's very different. And so just seeing that intricacy was a very good experience. Again, I wouldn't be here today, and I don't know if in this presentation, if I have this picture where I have like I think 30 people with me when I graduated from medical school. And again, I'm here because of an army of individuals, including great mentors that have kind of helped in terms of my journey. The life is messy, as you saw that picture of my kiddo with like chapstick all over his face. So again, life is messy. There's days that are messy, but again, that's why that self-care and that checking in with oneself and keeping kind of that mission at the front is so important, because wherever you are, it's so incredibly important to take care of that spirit. Because again, I always found that picture of the individual with the mask on, and as a parent, like thinking of putting my mask on before putting on my kid's mask was like, what? How am I going to put my mask on before I put my kiddo's mask on? But it's so true, right? We can't help others unless we're okay and we're taking care of ourselves. So again, as now an attending, which I still think it's kind of getting used to that word, even though it's almost been 3 years post training, like again, it's really, really important to care for ourselves in the work that we do. In terms of psychiatry and child and adolescent psychiatry, so the other question that I was asked about was kind of my day-to-day. The beautiful thing about psychiatry is that it's changing. So you can do telehealth if you want. I do hybrid. So I see patients in the office, and I do video appointments. And so, but there's also a lot of kind of versatility in terms of what you can do in terms of your work. And there's a lot of beauty in the work that we do. I think one of the things that I do on a daily basis is decreasing stigma, talking about different psychiatric diagnoses, saying, no, your kiddo is not lazy or kind of losing things eternally. They have ADHD, which is a brain connectivity disorder. Or in terms of depression, they are not, they're like, oh, well, they're smiling ever so often, so everything's fine. And it's more so that just because you see them smiling, it's not a reflection of how they're really doing internally. And so really trying to understand or explaining to family members of all kind of backgrounds that no, Zoloft is not going to make you an addict. You're not going to be addicted. And there's a big, big fear in terms of addiction, in terms of starting kiddos on medicine that are really struggling with depression, not mildly, like severely struggling, like kiddos not showering, not eating, and so that concern and addressing that. Because I think that's one of the things that I appreciate about my grandmother being a curandera, is that I have a great respect for alternative healing. And I feel it's really important to understand, well, what is kind of healing for you, and kind of what kind of different techniques, because a lot of times natural things can still interact with other things, right? Like St. John's wort, it's important to know about that because that interacts with a lot of different things. And knowing kind of how our patients are healing themselves is important in terms of just also building that relationship. So that's really, really important to me. And then again, for me, my mission again is kind of addressing that stigma, addressing kind of, this picture is just showing a lot of words that we use in a sometimes frequently negative way of and so trying to kind of address that stigma and helping individuals seek care and not be afraid to seek care because they're going to get a label. And again, we all have to stand together against stigma, talk about mental health, challenge each other to be well, challenge each other to take care of ourselves. And I like this picture again. My daughter's getting kind of the little, I forgot the cascarones all over herself. They're like little eggs that have confetti in it that you use for Easter. And then again, success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you are doing, you will be successful. And again, I am grateful every day that I'm a child psychiatrist. I love the work that I do. Are there days that are hard? Definitely. But life in general has its ups and downs. And so, again, I always challenge you guys. I know I took a little bit of detour from family medicine to psychiatry and then to fellowship. But again, it's worth the journey. These are pictures of my kiddos again. And I really, in terms of one of the quotes that I grew up and I always remember is my mom would always tell me, Mija, your investment in your education, no one can take away that from you. They can take away your possessions, but your education is an investment that's yours and yours alone. And I really like this quote because I feel like it highlights that. When things begin to fall apart, you lose everything you've built. But anyway, so actually this isn't the quote that I wanted. But all in all, again, the meaning is, again, that investment in your education is incredibly, it's yours, right? No one can take that away from you. And it's very, very important, that investment. So again, we need you. We know that there is a mental health crisis. We need, I frequently was called a unicorn provider. I don't want to be a unicorn provider. I want there to be more Spanish speaking psychiatrists. Again, because there's a lot of patients that need you, right? And so definitely, that's one of the reasons why I'm here, to say that we desperately need you. And this is from an NHMA kind of meeting. And then you can make a difference and reach out to those in need. And definitely you are needed. Te necesitamos, muy importante. We need you. So in the words of Maya Angelou, we're making tamales. I love this picture of my daughter. Leaving behind the nights of terror and fear, I rise into a daybreak that's ridiculous, that's wondrously clear. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream of and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. And I think Maya Angelou's writings are just so beautiful, and definitely talk about kind of that resilience, that strength. So, and again, I did some nonprofit work, and I'm still working with Reach Out, which I'm very proud of. I started working with them as an undergraduate student, and now I'm very honored that I'm on their board. And one of the lessons that while I was doing kind of working with that nonprofit, someone told me that if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And there's definitely a lot of individuals that need advocacy, that need to hear our voice for them. And so again, that's why we need you. Te necesitamos. It's really important that you're at the table to advocate for that advocacy. And again, it takes a village. This is a project that I did with Dr. Bailey, and it was a really beautiful project in terms of introducing Michelle Obama and her book Becoming to there were junior high students and high school students from that were kind of identified by the school as kind of being high risk for not completing junior high or not completing high school. And so this was a special program that was created to help target those students that were kind of dealing with homelessness and dealing with a lot of different things. And so I wanted to introduce Michelle Obama, who talks about imposter syndrome, who talks about a lot of failing at the first time in terms of passing the bar and needing to do it again. And so I think that's really, really important to highlight, because again, a lot of times we see individuals and we're like, they never failed. Everything went right the first time. And I think it's important to realize that no, everything did not go right the first time, and that's okay. And again, one of the gifts that my mom gave me was this, like for Christmas, was this picture frame with like this black felt and little stars on it. And she always told me, don't forget to look at the stars, because if you focus on the blackness of night, you're going to miss on the stars. And I feel like that's a good reflection of life. And that if we focus on all the things that went wrong, we're going to miss out on seeing all the things that went right. And again, that's why I feel that the gratitude exercises are so powerful, because it helps remind us of the things that are going right and kind of reflecting on that in terms of self-care. So when it rains, look for rainbows. When it's dark, look for stars. So I've talked a lot, and I wanted to allow a little bit of time for questions. Again, this is my fish pot. I thought it was so cool. So believe you can, and you're halfway there. And so here, this is not my son. This is my 7-year-old is very proud of like helping dig holes. We were planting trees. Now that's all kind of work in progress. There's more trees there now. But again, he wanted to help. And so those are some of our trees that we've planted together as a family. So again, in the words of Miss Frizzle, take chances, make mistakes, and get messy. And don't forget to care for yourself. All right. So I'm going to pause there and see kind of if we had any kind of questions or anything that that you're like kind of curiosities or anything else.
I have a question if you guys don't mind me asking. We had a discussion yesterday in a different Zoom session regarding diversity in psychiatry as well. And we had a discussion how it's always the same people showing up, and how do we get the people who are not already passionate about advocating for mental health in marginalized communities? How do we get them to listen? Because if I look at this audience and I already know these are the people that always show up, how do we move beyond that? Any suggestions?
Right. And so I think that I think one of that is positioning, and my hope is that I'm trying to increase my reach, because I think that one of the reasons why I went to Texas to do fellowship is that the attendings and the diversity of the faculty. I had not met a Latina psychiatrist at all, until fellowship. I didn't even they didn't exist to me, and so I think that overall it meant a lot for me in terms of being able to identify or see somebody that I could identify with. And so, again, representation matters. Again, I'm speaking to the choir because everyone knows that here. But again, I feel like part of it is again, every single time I'm meeting new people, I'm making new connections. I kind of do put myself out there in different locations and kind of talk about things. And so, but you're right, it is a challenge in terms of increasing the audience. But the one thing I will say is that over time, groups like this make me excited, because I didn't have a group like this when I was a resident. I didn't have, and overall, as I've progressed in terms of my training, I'm seeing increased diversity and increased interest in psychiatry. I like talking about psychiatry, and I do talks for high school students and college students to try to, because again, I really didn't understand psychiatry until I was, even though I interfaced with the system as a family member, I really didn't understand what it meant to be a psychiatrist. And I don't really think I even understood what it meant to be until I was a resident and I was in it. And so I think that all in all, getting that increased exposure is important, to get kind of more individuals kind of just kind of exposed to what is psychiatry and talking about it. Because I feel like that's kind of part of the battle too, is that having discussions in English and in Spanish. And I've done that too. So when I was a resident at UCI, I ran a support group for family members in Spanish. I started off in English, and I was like, you know what? I'm bilingual. I should be doing this in Spanish. My Spanish speakers need me. And so then I started doing it in Spanish. And again, that was one of the most transformative experiences of my life. So as I was dragging my feet, in terms of being saying like, yes, I want to do fellowship, because I was like, I took a detour. I did a master's in public health. I took a detour. I went to family medicine. And then now I'm here as a psychiatry resident. I really don't want to take another detour. And I have 2 kids at this point, and do fellowship. But again, I ended up, so there was a patient that was severely manic. So manic is they weren't sleeping, they were talking very fast, and they weren't able to function in terms of eating, self-care. And so they needed to be hospitalized. And so this was an adolescent, and mom had interfaced with the mental health system and was Spanish speaking, and just had a very negative experience. So she was very afraid, and I didn't want to put this kid on a hold. So I kept going back and talking to that mom. Ultimately, she said, okay, the kiddo got admitted. And ultimately, as I was running those Spanish support groups, mom came. And mom shared kind of in terms of that group about her kiddo making a YouTube video talking about how their bipolar diagnosis didn't define them, and that they were going to do great things, and they love music. And so they did it in the form of music, and it brought me to tears. I was like, whoa, like I get to be part of like this life, this family. And that, and again, I got to be a part of making sure that that experience was not a negative experience. And now this mom, I get to be in the room as she's talking to kind of other Spanish speaking individuals, and she's empowered and has taken this information, and she again is seeking care, and things are just in a much better place for her son and for her. And so again, that was kind of one of the things that, but again, just kind of doing something different, right? There wasn't a Spanish kind of NAMI support group, and I decided to start one. And we posted the flyers. I told everybody about it. And again, it was kind of something different. But I think sometimes it's just kind of doing things a little bit different, and putting yourself out there. And sometimes the win. Again, I say it sounds like kind of, but I really do kind of listening to The Alchemist. If you haven't read it, recommend it. Again, of just kind of being open to chance, being open to kind of what the world has in terms of opportunity. So, but I think in terms of is it a difficult question, but I feel like it's moving, right? In terms of, again, this group gives me a lot of hope. When I got the message about this, I was like, yes. And then I saw all the speakers. I was like, whoa, I get to speak with these awesome people. Okay, I'll do my best. So, but any other questions? I know that we're getting closer to the end.
Yeah, I had a question. Thank you again for your talk. It's been really inspiring. Kind of how you mentioned that in like residency, like you didn't really know like another Latina psychiatrist until like fellowship. How was residency and like, you know, like, cause I feel so like we're at UCI and like I've interacted with like UCI psychiatrists and I haven't seen a lot of diversity even now.
Right.
So just kind of like, I guess, how was residency? Oh, wait.
No, I can hear you. Oh, I can't hear you now. Oh, I could hear you, but now I can't.
We can't hear you.
Okay.
Lord. The earbuds were working.
Oh no, okay. It like beeped like it's dying. But how was residency versus like fellowship in aspects in like regards to like diversity? Like was it more diverse?
So I think sometimes too is that unexpected individuals can be your hugest advocates. And that's why I think that I've been lucky in that I've had mentors that kind of different backgrounds that have just been phenomenal. They've been in my corner, my court, my boxing ring, and they're like, give me my towel, give me more water, and be like, all right, you're ready to go fight. And so what I mean by that is that Dr. Bailey has appreciated as a fellow, appreciated kind of my thoughts and what I wanted to do. And even definitely at UCI too, I felt like I did a lot of really, we created this kind of room that to kind of in terms of yoga mats and just kind of in terms of mindfulness and kind of that wellness and kind of fostering wellness. And I asked for the room and they were like, okay. And so I feel like at the end, I had different ideas and that's, I just put myself out there and they let me do it. And they supported and fostered kind of my, me doing that. I didn't mention, so Dr. Stefani is an amazing, incredible individual. And I think for whatever reason, I don't know how this happened. I knew LMSA and I knew CCM, but I didn't know NHMA. I don't know how that happened, but it happened, right? And so he was like, hey, I really want you to, I'm going to write you a letter for this. I really want you, I feel like you deserve Resident of the Year. And so I'm writing this letter. And so he's like, I need these documents and put it together because I'm writing you this letter. And because I just think you, and again, huge advocate, and introduced me to NHMA. Because again, I didn't have any clue of what NHMA kind of really, I didn't understand and it was really, really just a really awesome kind of connection. And so sometimes mentors can kind of connect you to things that they didn't even know they were connecting you to this whole network of kind of Latino physicians. And so again, I think that sometimes diversity definitely is important in higher education, but I think also a lot of individuals can open doors for you. Like Dr. Bailey, definitely that project that I showed you, the Becoming Project. Again, it was just kind of my kind of idea. And then she grew it to this whole thing where we were in, I don't know how many schools we ended up doing. I think it was more than 10. And we were doing this program for kind of junior high students and introducing them to Michelle Obama. And ultimately at the end of it, they got to highlight the book, the different topics that I put together were discussed, and they got to take that book eventually home with them at the end of the program. That was their book, and by Michelle Obama, so that they had a role model that they could identify with. And so again, and she, I think all in all, I didn't mention, but during fellowship, I didn't even know if I was going to finish it. My dad was in the ICU, and so I was in the middle of like my first year and about to transition to my second year. And my dad was in the ICU with severe head injury, a very severe head injury, and basically had all of the facial bones of his face broken. And so, and again, she was like, okay, we'll figure out a way to make it work. You need to be there for your family. And again, kind of moved mountains. And I'm very grateful because, again, I love being a child adolescent psychiatrist. I love the work that I do. And she made it happen. And so sometimes I feel like, again, kind of being open to kind of different opportunities, different individuals, kind of different perspectives is of huge value. And they can also be kind of the biggest kind of in terms of opening that door to a new audience to help kind of advocate, to help kind of work collaboratively together. So I think that, I feel like when I was a resident at UCI, I just did a lot of really cool things. I definitely had I had a great experience. I learned a lot. And I feel like I'm very grateful for the training that I had and the mentors that I had, again, of kind of different kind of backgrounds. And then also for the fellowship in terms of kind of meeting kind of different kind of physicians. And the other thing too is that professional organizations, really important. They connect you to different individuals, lots of different opportunities. So I know that one of the previous speakers or the previous speaker was a SAMHSA fellow. That was what funded my Becoming project. So that SAMHSA fellowship helped fund it. So again, one, advocacy is important in terms of kind of and again, exposure to different mentors who will kind of introduce you kind of to different ideas, different topics is really, really important. So I highly recommend check out the APA in terms of different opportunities that they have for medical students. They have for tons of opportunities for residents, fellows. So, and I think they might have programs for high school students too. So if there's any high school students on the video call, something to check out too. So, but good questions. I know we're over time. Any other questions before we say goodbye? Do I get to see everybody's faces real quick? I know we have a lot of people.
Like Jackie wants to say something. We're a shy group.
That's okay. I'm friendly.
There's a question that Violetta posted.
Oh, it's okay. Thank you, Jackie, for bringing that up. So I had asked about like your decision to not pursue a fellowship at UCI. Was that process a lot more challenging to have to go somewhere else for that fellowship?
So all in all, again, I'm gonna be like, oh, she's talking about the alchemist again. Ugh. But anyway, I digress. But all in all, again, I'm always a firm believer of taking chances, making mistakes, kind of just really. So the fellowship in Texas was, and I think in terms of when we choose kind of different residencies and fellowships, it's a complicated decision, right? There's so many different things that go into that. And it's a very kind of individual kind of decision. For me, it was, I felt like this connection to the program, to the people that they were serving, and to the program director, in terms of her mission and who she was. And I basically couldn't kind of choose anywhere else. I was like, yep, that's my home. I know it's like across the country. I know I'm moving my 3 kids, my husband from California, and I just had a baby. So, and was it hard? Because again, UCI is a very special place. Again, amazing mentors, Dr. Safani, Dr. Dubé, who's now kind of program director, I think at a different program in Southern California, phenomenal individuals. And just very, very grateful. Again, the attendings that I worked with were phenomenal. It was a hard decision because I did a lot of different projects and there was a lot of different opportunities, but it just felt like the right thing to do. And again, also from a learning standpoint, I did a master's in public health and health policy and management. So really what that is looking at the system, looking at it from kind of the insurance standpoint, looking at it from kind of a policy standpoint, and really trying to understand, I see a problem. So the machine keeps giving me a left shoe and I really want a right shoe, right? I want to be able to walk in shoes because I can't walk with a left shoe. right? So, but I can't be mad at the machine because it keeps pulling out a left shoe because it was programmed to only make a left shoe. So I really have to understand how the machine works so that I can change kind of the outcome. And so that was really what was really powerful for my master's in public health, and saying, I see a problem, right? My experience with the mental health system was very negative. Is this kind of something that is isolative to me, or is this something that's very well documented in the literature? And it is, right? The mental health system has a lot of problems. And so in addition to that, it's kind of, okay, and now what can I do to kind of work towards change? And that's one of the reasons why I do nonprofit work is that, one, I work with students because I want to increase the diversity. I don't want to be a unicorn provider. I want kind of more kind of doctors that, or kind of health professionals that, again, I have a lot of respect for my team. I work with amazing individuals, therapists and social workers, and just an amazing, amazing team. So psychiatry isn't, especially child psychiatry, isn't a bubble. We work with families, right? And the team is teachers, really important, right? And so again, all in all, that's why I work with students, again, to increase diversity within kind of psychiatry, medicine, healthcare. And then in terms of the policy work is in terms of working towards kind of from kind of an advocacy standpoint, addressing the system. And then I love patient care. So I don't think I could ever leave that. So, but yeah, I love working with kind of just families as a whole. So email, yes, you are welcome to email me. And then that's one of the reasons why I did an Instagram. One of my pipe dreams is to eventually, or pocket dreams, whatever, I think I said the phrase wrong, but is to do kind of a social media channel where I'm working with students, again, giving information, helping families see in terms of kind of just information that I kind of say every day. So rather than kind of repeating the same thing over and over, is to kind of do it on a global scale. I just think about it and then I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. And then I get tired. So, but eventually that's kind of on the works to do. But ha sido un placer. So it's been a pleasure. Hopefully you'll check out that La Vida es un Carnaval from Celia Cruz. And maybe go ahead and dance a little bit, translate the lyrics to English. And again, it's an honor, and my gratitude exercise for tonight is this time with you. And again, one last plug for that 2 to 3 sentence mission statement. And I again recommend that you revisit it in terms of kind of reframing and saying, okay, where am I going? And again, si se puede, si se pudo, right? So it can be done, it will be done. And again, I don't have kind of any kind of superhero kind of anything. Again, I really try to be as kind of relatable and just, you get what you see. Sparkle and pink and all. All right, que se me cuiden. You guys take care, okay?
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's an
Adios.
honor to have you here.
Oh no, the honor is mine. Que se me cuiden. All right.